Hello one and all, this is Soulful Lordy, James Bullock, once again with another video game first impressions. This time around, Capcom Fighting Collection for the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and PC. Capcom Fighting Collection is a compilation of the arcade versions of 10 games originally developed and published by Capcom, including all 5 entries in the Darkstalkers franchise. Now, as I just mentioned, one of the big things about this is the fact that not only is it all 5 entries in the Darkstalkers franchise, which means that not only you get all 5 entries, of course, but the Japanese versions of all 5 entries, with 2 of those games, specifically the last 2 versions of Darkstalkers 3, which were Japanese released only. We also get the Pocket Fighter games with Super Gem Fighter Minimax, and my personal favorite, one of my greatest games, one of my favorite games of all time, Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo. And then we have some very interesting entries. One being Hyper Street Fighter 2, the Anniversary Edition, which originally came out back in 2003. I actually had that game, I had the collection that came out on the PlayStation 2, but there are also 2 games I've never had the opportunity to play and really have never really heard of too much. I've heard of Red Earth, which is this player versus computer or player versus boss battle that plays like the original Street Fighter, but a lot better, as you have these more fluid animations, these interesting character designs, these bosses that can tear you apart, and most importantly, when it comes to the character that you're playing as, the ability to upgrade as you progress throughout these stages. You level up, and more importantly, you gain passwords, very similar to the old school games. So if you have this password, you can put it in at the beginning of the title screen and go immediately to that next stage. The other game is a very interesting arcade game that, once again, a PvP 1v1 2D fighter, Cyberbots. You take control of these mechanized bots after choosing a particular character, and in the case of, since this is an arcade version, take on these fighters that are also in bots in a very wild mech brawler that plays like nothing else on this collection, and one of the rare entries of a fighting game that I've never experienced that feels so different from almost anything else. It feels something like King of the Monsters more so than it feels like a Street Fighter game or even Red Earth to a certain extent. One of the best things about this collection, beyond the fact that you can play these games that have been either never outsourced out of Japan or haven't been available on a disc or just a collection in general in many years, if at all, is the fact that this also provides the ability to play online. And the rollback netcode that I've experienced thus far has been mostly good, though I've had some laggy experiences, and I really believe that's because of the fact that there is no crossplay. And the reason I say this is because with this being a niche product, something that's really catering toward gamers that were around during the mid-90s who have an affinity for these type of games, not necessarily newer gamers, not necessarily casual fighting gamers. It's kind of hard to get a game started with a bunch of people that don't necessarily have the time or the energy to play these games all over again like it was the mid-90s. So it will be a crapshoot in the ability to find someone to play online, especially with the lacking of crossplay. Now, one thing that must be noted is the fact that while you're waiting online to get a match started, that you can't play whatever game you want to play. You don't have to specifically play the game that you're waiting or hoping to get a game to play as. You can just play through arcade mode and just gear up for the potential fight that you're about to have. But it also must be noted as well that you will only get 3 fights per session. At first I thought this was solely connected to ranked mode, which made sense, but in casual mode and player mode, you only can have 3 fights with a player, which is very unfortunate, because if you find someone that is really in for the fun and adventure of just fighting with each other and not having to try to find each other or open up a lobby, you miss out on the ability to really play with someone for an extended period of time like you would when you're playing in the arcades. I can understand in ranked mode, but when it comes to player and casual mode, there should be unlimited opportunities to hit rematch until someone says, you know what, that was fun, let's move on. Some interesting sketches and pretty much the idea, the concept designs not only characters but also the stages that they will be fighting on. Of course, there is the audio gallery. Most importantly, when it comes to just being player friendly, the save state and the filters that allow for gamers to feel the presentation as they see fit, be it the old CRTV style or just no filter at all. Overall, this is a great collection for gamers who not only experience a majority of these games back in the day, but also those who want to relive those glory days, both offline and online. Now, it must also be noted that with this being a fighting collection that is rooted in the arcade games, the re-releases and the ports of certain games, like for example Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, that had the Streets mode that added extra gameplay to the console ports, isn't available here. So if you're playing this with the intent of just not playing just arcade mode, then you will not have the grandiose time that you were expecting, especially if you're solely also wanting just to play online, because right now there's not that many people playing online, or at least it wasn't for me. So hopefully that changes in the very near future, that a lot of gamers have the opportunity to play these classic games both offline and online. If you're a fan of the old school Capcom games, this is a definite purchase. If not, it's not something that I think will make you feel like you're missing out on anything special, which is very unfortunate because these are some classic games if you are a fighting gamer. So there you have it. This has been Soulful Lordy, James Bullock, once again with another video game first impressions. Capcom Fighting Collection for the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, PC, and Nintendo Switch. Now, if you don't mind, I have to try to go back online. I'm going to play around a little bit, and hopefully someone will challenge me. Here comes a new challenger to take me on in Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, because I'm going to conquer the world in this game just like I did back on the PlayStation 1 when all I was doing was playing with friends. I will crush those gems, break their spirits, and make them have no choice but to say, "Oh Lordy."